All right, I apologize. I'm going to give everybody just a couple of minutes here. I don't know what I did. It's a complete disaster. Hopefully, I can get everybody aboard here. While I do that, let me also go to today's Facebook's NASDAQ. Oh, wow. Okay. This is blowing my mind right now. All right. Well, we're getting everybody here slowly but surely. Let me see if I can go back to screen share. All right. I don't know what I did. I just did a complete disaster. All right. All right. So I just want to show you is just out of curiosity, Facebook's here on this last week of our semester. And you can see this real-time NASDAQ. You know, the markets seem to be ratifying whatever decision Zuckerberg has been making, and you can see that Facebook's share price, I think, is at a record high. This is pretty remarkable stuff. All right, what I want to show you here is Facebook's board of directors. This is their management team. Now, remember, the managers are appointed by the board of directors, but who's on the board? Board is elected by the shareholders. Of course, on the board, you have two of the officers, two of the managers. And by the way, in addition to Zuckerberg, Sheryl Sandberg, has played an important role. She came over from Google. She is, well, now Mark is like 38 or something, but when Mark was still in his 20s, like Sheryl Sandberg, she was the adult in the room. She was the one that really, and she's the CEO, so she is really running the company on a day-to-day basis. Now this is all alphabetical, but you can see this is pretty fascinating. If you look at this, look who's on the board of directors. Peggy Alford, right? It's pretty remarkable here. But look at her experience here with PayPal, and she was CFO of the Chan Zuckerberg initiative. You may have heard that a couple of years ago, Zuckerberg and Priscilla Chan, supposedly going to give all their wealth away, through their initiative. Those of us like on my side, this is more of a, tax kind of a thing, but all right, great. These are great philanthropists, but you can see she's really connected with Zuckerberg, right? Mark Andreessen, co-founder of the Netscape blogger, search engine. He's just a hero in the tech community. He's sort of like the OG, in computer science, and I'm sure Zuckerberg looks up to him. He's on his board. He's Zuckerberg's mentor. Andrew Houston, this is actually, he served just since last year. Look at this, CEO of Dropbox. Those are the kind of people. Those are the kind of people on Facebook's board. Look at Nancy Killefer, senior partner at McKinsey & Company, right? That's like, the top consulting firm in the world. She was senior partner there. Look at that type of people on this board. Kimmets, who was an ambassador, and he was at this big Wilmer Cutler Pickering is a huge, a very powerful law firm. Peter Thiel still on the board. Remember, he was the first outside angel investor. And Tracy Travis, she used to be at Estee Lauder. The point is, look who's not on the board. Look who's not on the board is what Elizabeth Warren is inviting you, is asking you right now. Look who is not on the board of directors of Facebook. And I will go further. Go to any single board of directors of any Fortune 500 company. that's non-German, go to any board of directors of any publicly traded company in the United States, and you're not going to see a single worker on a single board of directors. That's who's missing from the board of directors. So what I like about the Accountable Capitalism Act is that second part of the bill. It says, well, you know what? Now 40% of the board of directors has to be composed of at least 40%, right? Although we know that's going to operate as a ceiling, right? If that's what the law requires, that's then as much as I'm going to do, right? 40% of the board of directors have to be employees of the company, not these big shots, CEOs of Dropbox, Estee Lauder, ambassadors, McKinsey and partners, no. You can have those people, but 40% have to be at least some of your own workers. And that's the other thing I like about Warren's bill, right? It's telling us employees, let's weight them 40%. And then finally, the bill does, the third thing it does is it would replace existing United States state, common law, which says right now under existing Delaware common law, for example, and the common law of all 50 states, a company has a fiduciary duty. The board of directors has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the corporation. That means that the board of directors has to make decisions. It's Friedman doctrine, right? It's the Friedman doctrine. I've got to make decisions that maximize the value of the company, right? That's the existing legal obligation under state common law that all corporations, all board of directors have. Well, what Senator Warren's bill would do is, again, if you're one of those companies, and there are by the way, there are almost 3,000 companies that this bill would apply to. There are about 3,000 companies doing business in the US that make at least $1 billion in revenue per year. Well, you'd have to replace your legal obligation to act in the best interest of the corporation with a legal obligation, stakeholder obligation, to act in the best interest of all of the stakeholders of your corporation. In summary, what Senator Warren's bill would do is she would basically legislate the stakeholder model. Right now, it's completely voluntary. And I think right now we live in a world in which companies say they're about stakeholders and they're about corporate social responsibility and good corporate citizenship. But when you look at how they act, they're about making money, they're about the Friedman doctrine, they're about the invisible hand, right? What Senator Warren's bill would do is, no. That type of hypocrisy and double talk is going to come to an end. If you're a big company making $1 billion or more per revenue, 40% of your board of directors has to be workers, and you're going to replace your fiduciary, duties under state common law with a new federal stakeholder duty, to act in the best interest of all your stakeholders. And you can see now why you need that U.S. Office of Corporations, because then if a company does not act in that way or does not have 40% of its board of directors employees, then they could run the risk of losing their charter, and they could be put out of business. So that's why you need that U.S. Office of Corporations to enforce the provisions of the bill. Now, the bill has some other aspects. I've included the Wikipedia page. I've also included Senator Warren's. I find it very compelling and persuasive op-ed that she wrote for the Wall Street Journal. So I just want to throw that out there. I think that'll be the next major debate, in terms of the intersection between business and politics. Do business firms have, what is their corporate social responsibility? If it's to make money, existing law works perfectly, because under existing law, a company has a fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of its of the company. The board of directors has this legal fiduciary duty to act in the best interest of the company. But if you agree with the stakeholder model and are not persuaded that companies are in fact acting in the best interest of their stakeholders, then maybe you might like Senator Warren's bill that would then legislate the stakeholder model. Now, to argue the other side, I'll argue that briefly. This is how we began the semester, and that's why I'm closing on this. Just because something is ethical, we all know that just because something is legal doesn't make it ethical, right? But you could say the reverse is true as well, right? Just because something is ethical shouldn't be made legal, or shouldn't be made a legal obligation. And so that, maybe just better that we just allow each business firm to decide for itself what it wants to do in terms of corporate social responsibility, and then let consumers make the ultimate decision by deciding to, which companies to buy their products and services from. All right, let's take a look at our survey results, and then we can end the semester. Now for survey results, what I'm going to do here is go into screen share mode and go back into the course, and I'll just pull up the quiz. Not the quiz, this is a survey. This is a graded survey. So this would be a good way to end. And I need to go to survey statistics, which will take just a little bit to load. But I'm always as curious as you are as to what the class thinks. So let's begin with Facebook. Is it a monopoly? Wow. So I think this might be the first time since conducting this survey, since going back to 2015, that I began teaching this course using the social network as one of the teaching tools, that a majority of the class has said that Facebook is a monopoly, and it's just, you can see the interaction of time here. I'll have to go back and look at these other results from previous sections, but it's just been building and building and building and building over time, which is what's telling me is that even though the government has an uphill battle, right? It's going to be a jury trial. And in a jury trial, right, we're talking about ordinary people that make this decision. And to the extent that more and more ordinary people are saying that, or have that initial impression that Facebook is a monopoly, illegal monopoly. Because remember, it's not illegal to be a monopoly in and of itself, unless you commit an illegal act to maintain your monopoly, as I explained at the beginning of the class. That is, to me, this is really mind-blowing. But notice it is close. And I wonder if this will affect the government's decision to settle this case or not. All right. The next thing is, this is interesting. I agree with the class here, right? Zuckerberg and all these CEOs, Business Roundtable, they can lecture us all they want about how they're about corporate social responsibility in terms of stakeholders and good corporate citizenship and, voting rights and climate change and Black Lives Matter, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, they're making decisions to make money. I think the Friedman doctrine, as a descriptive tool, device, maybe it's not how the world should work. Maybe it's not just about making money, but I think that's what these companies are really doing at the end of the day. Now, I will tell you, the Donald Trump decision, to me, is a real difficult one. Remember what Michael Jordan said, right? Michael Jordan said, Republicans buy sneakers too, right? So if you're Zuckerberg, right, a lot of people on Facebook support Donald Trump. So if you ban Donald Trump, you might risk alienating those people, and they'll go on to a different platform or use Facebook less, right? But then again, if you keep Donald Trump on, there's a lot of people on your platform that don't like Donald Trump, and so that to me is a real, real tough spot. And when Mr. Zuckerberg decided to ban Donald Trump, I don't know if he was acting in the best interest of his corporation, to be honest with you. Maybe he was. I mean, I don't know. I'm just a professor. I didn't make the decision myself. But it's interesting that most of the class, this is my sense too, that it's just about making money. And I would argue there's nothing wrong with that. Finally, how much support do we have for the Accountable Capitalism Act in here? You could argue this bill goes too far. Why change things? If our economy is booming, corporations, we got to be careful. They create jobs. So we don't want to penalize these companies that provide all these benefits to us. You know what I mean? They provide goods and services that we want as well. My friend and colleague, Tyler Cowen, wrote a book called Big Business, A Love Letter to an American Antihero. And I have just written a book review of that book for the Cato Journal. I'm hoping is going to come out soon. And so this is an issue that I, feel very strongly about as well. Like I think big business, generally speaking, is is underrated. But do we need this regulation? And really interesting, yes. Look at this. It's like a lot of people are just fed up with the hypocrisy. You're telling me that, like, I knew Amazon didn't pay any taxes. I didn't know that Jeff Bezos didn't pay or paid very little taxes. You know what I mean? With the new ProPublica revelations. Yeah, I knew that SpaceX and Tesla probably paid little in taxes. I didn't know that Elon Musk himself didn't pay very much in taxes. You know what I mean, et cetera, et cetera. So it's like, the climate is there. And notice with the outcome of the Georgia senatorial election, the votes are there. So we'll see what happens. Now, I will tell you, in real life, the Democratic Party is a very diverse and broad party. So you have people like this guy, Joe Manchin from West Virginia, who is called the Yellow Dog Democrat. They're more conservative, because their constituents are more conservative. And then you have people from California, Dianne Feinstein or whatever, and Chuck Schumer, New York State, the more liberal Democrats. And so we'll see what happens if the Democrats can, this will get any hearing at whatsoever. If it doesn't get any hearing while they're in power, then the Accountable Capitalism Act is going nowhere. But I really feel that Senator Warren, she is saying something that a lot of people agree with. They don't like the fact that these companies are making a lot of money and the workers don't seem to be getting the benefits. They don't seem to be sharing. There seems to be, like, CEO pay has gone up dramatically, and that's fine because the value of these companies have gone up dramatically. But worker pay has been pretty much stagnant since the 1980s, and that's not fair, right? So I can see whether this bill would actually, improve that. I could see you have a good faith, a difference of opinion. But I think this will become a bigger and bigger issue as the days go by and as we get closer to the next election. All right, so I'm going to end the screen share here. And I began the semester. I don't have today's New York Times because I haven't left the house yet. So it's like, I have yesterday's New York Times here with all the candidates running for mayor of New York City. And what's really interesting is that the article about the New York mayor's race is about piles of money paving the path to mayoralty. So, it's about, the role that billionaires buoy New York's moderates. So the role that, billionaires generally, right, get their money through business. There's an article here about New York trails the rest of the US and virus rebound, economic scars linger, right? Interesting here is article about the housing market in Phoenix. And then, of course, if we turn to the business page, let's see here, article on Tucker Carlson and gossip in DC. Millions are just quitting their jobs. So a lot of people don't want to go back to work. And I frankly can't blame them. Lumber prices are falling. So as you can see, right, all of these sort of news from the business world, right, making their way onto the front page of the New York Times. And so hopefully throughout the semester, now that we've seen sort of a big picture, we've closed off with corporate social responsibility and whether Facebook is a monopoly, and should we extend free speech protections on a privately owned social media platform. But these are kind of and the Accountable Capitalism Act we took a look at, which is now pending. But really, if you go back through the semester, what we've done is, regardless of which area of business, right, and what I've decided to do here, right, in this semester, is use these 3 movies, beginning with The Social Network, because it does tell, I think, and if you haven't seen it, go to Netflix. It's a good movie. It dramatizes the founding of Facebook. A lot of it is based on actual deposition testimony, so testimony of the witnesses themselves. We also took a look at Tiger King, and we saw, for example, the role that animals play, in various aspects of the common law. And we also saw, I've always been fascinated with JFK conspiracy theories. I've never accepted as true the Warren Commission and the lone gunman, theory. And so, but, it's anybody's guess to, well, then who were the conspirators, and why did they want to assassinate President Kennedy? And we saw that there was actually one criminal case that was brought, but resulting in an acquittal because it didn't meet the standard of proof. So we've seen a lot this semester, but the main point is we've seen now, big picture, the main sources of law, right? Whether it's state and local law, federal law, and of course, international law or international conventions. Then we saw the common law, torts, contracts, and property rights. And with property rights, we really focused on intellectual property, right? Trademarks and trade secrets, patents and copyrights. And we saw that, in fact, every single one of us has created some form of intellectual property. Then we saw, civil and criminal cases, which is what we normally think about when we think of the law. And there I focused on due process and the burdens of proof. I also spent a lot of time talking about how the legal system actually works, and that cases are so time consuming, and the uncertainty of the jury verdict is so great that in fact most cases are settled out of court, and in fact there is this enormous pressure for what's called alternative dispute resolution. Even the government, when they decided to buy the Zapruder, the rights to the Zapruder film, even the government didn't want to go through its own legal system, and they agreed to an arbitration panel with the Zapruder heirs. That's all you need to know about how slow and expensive and uncertain the litigation process is. And then finally, we concluded with really looking at Facebook today, looking at the antitrust allegations, looking at Facebook's creation of a new oversight board, and finally talking about corporate social responsibility and the possibility that the Accountable Capitalism Act might or might not get enacted in some form. So we've actually done a lot in this very short and compressed semester. Hope appreciate that. And at this stage, what I'll do is just shut it down and open it up for any questions, comments, or concerns. Yes, jump in. I think Gabriela there. Now you may be muted. Okay. If Miss, jump in here. I believe, I don't know if Gabriela is trying to jump in. If you are, you're muted. And so unmute yourself. Otherwise, if anybody else has a question, comment, or concern. Oh, great. Yeah. Let me go into the comments. And I know Ben is in here, or he was in here, and I lost the original chat. Yes. Definitely my pleasure. Survive the semester. This will be our last week. You want to get the assignment will remain open until the 26th, but to get full credit, you want to complete it by tomorrow at midnight, 11:59. And the idea is just to reward students who have their stuff together and just get it in on time. Unfortunately, it's an early deadline because grades are due June 30th, next Tuesday. And because we have, I believe, 387 students, it's a lot of projects to grade. You know what I mean? Even with two-person groups, it's a lot to grade. And so we will do it, my TAs and I, but we have to read each one individually, and it's always proofread by a second grader. And that's why that takes, so that everybody gets consistency in their grading. And that's why we need the extra time for the grading. Yes, question. Yes, jump in here. If you want to do the question in the chat, yes, you may ask here. By all means, just jump in here. You can either use the chat, or if you don't mind making it public in case somebody else wants the question. Yes.
I don't mind. I have a question is about my company. So I don't know if I can ask it here right
Yes,
now.
yes, yes. By all means.
Uh, okay, so I chose Airbnb, and for the contracts, uh, I think we couldn't find a business contract that like an important one. It's mostly contracts that are between the host and the guest.
Okay.
Would that count as a contractual
Absolutely.
relationship?
That, in fact, that's excellent. I would agree. I would even say that probably is the best contract. And I should have reworded, because that's a new economy company. And by the way, let me say a few words about Airbnb, because that is an amazing, successful. That is a great choice, by the way, for a final project. So I, take my hat off to you and your group. But yeah, I would say, in fact, that is in fact the single most important contract. That so-called, I forgot how Airbnb calls it, but you're right. That user agreement, or that agreement between the host. When you actually agree to rent an Airbnb, there's an agreement that you have to agree to with the host. Now the host, I believe, also has a set of agreements with Airbnb. But I agree with you. I actually think any agreement that involves your customers, your users, probably is the most important agreement, because that's the interface. You need those people to be successful in business, but you need a contract to delimit the rights of the parties. Now, by the way, the thing I want to say about Airbnb that I find fascinating, and there was a recent article about this. Let me see if it's up on my browser really quick, because then if it is, I will send it. I will put it in the link. Um, let me see here. I don't see it right now, so I may have to keep looking for it. I apologize for that. But um, one of the interesting unresolved legal issues are legal liability. Remember, we're talking about tort law. And so, for example, there have been, it's unfortunately hasn't been a lot, but there have been cases where like a guest has been injured, in a property. You know what I mean? There have even been there've been sometimes,
Yeah, I
it may
think
be,
5 people were killed in a property last year. They
yeah,
issued a patent after that
yeah,
because a
that,
party went wrong and 5 people died.
yeah, and I know there was one in Malibu the other day, where a platform fell. Technically, they were in violation of the agreement. That was supposed to be only 6 people. But the thing is, when somebody gets injured on an Airbnb property, it's not clear. I just want to throw it out there, not because
Mhm.
you need to address it, but to me, like when an interesting legal issue is the host could very well be legally liable, right? Because if you own a property and somebody gets injured on your property, you're gonna have to consult a lawyer because that's tort law. And generally speaking is that when you own a property and you invite somebody on your property, it's called an invitee, and you owe to your invitees the highest duty of care, you know? But is Airbnb legally liable? And this is why that agreement is so important, in my opinion, because if I have an agreement already in place, or at least between the host and the guest, can I use the agreement to limit the legal liability of the company? Now, I'll tell you, to my knowledge, I don't know if this has been tested in court yet. You know what I mean? And that's a more advanced area of contract law. Can you use contracts to limit your legal liability? And that does vary. That's state common law. And generally, the answer is it depends on the type of injury and on the language in the contract and on some other factors, but it's not impossible to do. So I want to throw that out there. That's why I find Airbnb is an excellent choice because
There was just a lawsuit against them because I think someone was raped in one of their properties,
yes,
and
I
they
read
just
about
paid
that case.
over 7 million to keep to settle
Right.
down the process.
Yeah, so Airbnb has a special unit, and I forgot what it is called. That's why I was looking for the article that deals with. Yeah, there was a sexual assault in,
Mhm.
I think, the Upper West Side in New York City, and so, or on 37th Street, I believe. So it's on the Midtown, I should say, one of their properties there, and then it's a little bit more complicated in New York because New York City has been trying to make Airbnb illegal, and Airbnb, of course. Has been fighting that, trying to say, well, that's not fair. And so it's a really, then apparently there's a second set of keys, that this assailant somehow obtained. but there was a settlement, and $7 million were paid, so this wouldn't go to court. So the courts wouldn't establish a precedent that Airbnb would be legally liable. So that I just want to throw that out there. Yeah, if you read about that case, then your group is perfectly fine, because that's a huge case that would affect could affect the business model of the company.
I also have another question about their property, like intellectual property, because I was looking over it and I was very confused because I know that I have the trademark for Airbnb.
Yes.
And in terms of patents, I found a lot of conflicting information because they applied for over like almost 200 all over the world. And I don't know how many were granted, because in like websites, I find there's like one for sure that were granted. But right now they keep getting more and more grants. So
yeah, and that's actually an excellent observation. So, just because somebody registers for a trademark, or, LeBron learned this the hard way when he tried to register the Taco Tuesday trademark, or just because you register for a patent, I may have explained how patents are almost not impossible to get, but it's very much an uphill battle. So yeah, I would always say, look, you can never go wrong by just saying like Airbnb, the trademark, you know what I mean? And so what you want to look there is Airbnb, does it have an R with a circle? In which case it's telling you it's a registered trademark, with the United States Patent and Trademark Office. Or does it have a TM and a circle? If it has a TM and a circle, then it's a trademark, but it's a common law unregistered trademark, But I would say recently Airbnb changed its logo to that. It's kind of like an abstract image, like a little pointy thing with the two circles on the bottom. And so, I know when the Airbnb changed its logo a few years ago, to that new logo, not everybody liked it. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? So it's kind of a controversy there.
Copyright over the new logo. So
but that,
right
I
now,
would say this is for everybody.
Objected.
Yeah, you can never go wrong by saying basically the company's trademark is arguably its most, important IP. However, it's fair to say that, yeah, look, it's registered for these trademark for these patents, and that these, if they're granted, could become the most valuable. So it's completely flexible how you want to deal with that.
Because from what I understood, I don't know if I'm like interpreting it wrong. Like their most important is the trademark because of their name, and their patents are mostly like technology based.
Right.
So the first one that they were granted was one that allowed to like recognize if the client has any psychopath tendencies.
Wow.
Or like, so it allows the
fascinating. Yeah, and that's my understanding too. Those patents
like background check.
Are generally algorithms,
and give the company its name. So like I'm having like trouble answering question number 6 because I don't know like what approach should I take.
Oh yeah. Well,
it's been hard to find like
that state. Yeah, that's a good question. That's probably one of the hardest questions. But I would always say you can never go wrong by saying it's the trademark, because that's sort of when a company thinks of Airbnb, and by the way, it's not just the logo. Notice Airbnb, right? I would argue that's a suggestive trademark, because the B&B, bed and breakfast, you can't trademark B&B or bed and breakfast because that's sort of like a generic or descriptive, right? But Airbnb, you know what I mean? Air, that you do it through the internet, that kind of thing. And so, just the word Airbnb with its trademark logo as well, I don't think you can ever go wrong by saying the trademark, the name of the company and its logo are probably its most valuable IP.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, of course. Now, any other questions, comments, or concerns?
Hi, I have a question about my project as well. Can we like
jump in here?
Okay, perfect. So my team and I, we picked Siemens as our company. So basically, I just wanted to know for like the intellectual property question, as I was doing like all my research and everything, they say that they like the most important intellectual property they have are patents and trademarks, because they have like patent offices for their company all over the world so that they can like patent all of their innovations and their inventions so that they can like their inventors, they can be like covered with any like ideas and that they come up with so that they can like own it and have rights to it. But I also put that trademark was also like really important with certain like specific inventions that they have. So I just included like some information about the semantic controller, which is like kind of like a controller that they made, which like helps like automation systems and like operations management, and how it's like evolved. So how they purchased that specific trademark. But I included like patents and trademarks, so I don't know if it's okay to include both.
Yeah, that's fine. I mean, you can never go wrong by saying the trademark of the company, Siemens. And if I'm understanding, of course, Siemens is a German company, and but that trade name is very, very valuable. You know, because it just stands for one of the most
energy
yeah, exactly. But yeah, that's a perfectly good strategy. You know, start with a trademark and say, look, here's an example also of a valuable, type of patent that they own. I mean, they themselves are saying that's how valuable it is that they themselves are doing it. So yeah, you cannot go wrong with that. That's perfectly fine.
And also, for like the format of the whole project, I know you said that there wasn't like a specific one, but for like the bibliography, should we do it like whatever we're choosing for like the rest of the document, or should we just like paste the links and just
paste the link is perfectly
just
fine.
Link?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's just there. It's more for your protection. If it, it's if there's
to turn it in.
Exactly. Hey, the link is there. The source is there. So that's just that's exactly right. And it's just nice to have always.
Something to come back to.
But let me just say this too. I forgot to say in response to yourself and the previous student. No, here's the larger point about IP. Notice is IP is how you build, your company. And even a company as powerful as Siemens. Well, that's why they're so powerful and successful, because they have invested so much in IP. And so it's like I just want to throw that out there, and that's why it's really in there, because we often tend to think of IP because that word intellectual property sounds very sophisticated, and indeed many of these types of IP, forms of IP are in fact, very highly technological and advanced, requiring teams of researchers and lots of testing. But the idea is that companies can own their ideas, and that's how those companies become successful, that they own the legal rights to their own ideas that they've developed. Or maybe like Zuckerberg did, like, okay, let's buy the rights to Instagram, let's buy the ideas of others and then incorporate it into our company. But yeah, you're on the right track, definitely. And great choice of company as well.
Perfect. Thank you. I just want to thank you. I think this class was so just well formatted. Everything was so clear, like all the assignments. I really enjoyed all your lectures. I tuned in till the very end, all of them. I really enjoyed how you taught the class and everything. I can see you're really passionate about what you teach, and you can really tell throughout your lectures. So I just wanted to thank you for that. And really, I enjoyed the class a lot.
I tried to, redesign it to keep it as simple as possible, so I appreciate that I was able to, succeed to some extent, you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even with everything being online, I thought it was so easy to like handle, know where all the assignments were, all the information. And the fact that we didn't have to purchase a book, I also want to thank you for that.
Yes, absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
We really appreciate that. So
yeah. I have had the benefit of taking some Coursera, courses, and edX, which is the Harvard MIT consortium, and I've done the Yale Open Courseware. So I basically combined, the best of each of these three, powerhouses, and Canvas is pretty flexible. So, so thank you. Yeah, I appreciate that. Absolutely. So that's a great vote of confidence. Certainly, you've made my day and a great way to end the semester. So thank you.
Oh yeah, absolutely. So I just wish you all the best, and just thank you again for everything in this course.
Of course, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Professor, I have another question.
Yes, jump in, please.
Okay, so it's also about Airbnb, because I was reading that in the European Union, they are having some negotiations and about like lobby paper, and they're considering under commercial secret. I don't really understand what does it mean for like the rest of the world, since it's only by the European Union a commercial secret, because you're denying the public the papers, like the documents.
Oh yeah, and this could be like some trade secrets and stuff like that. It's clearly Airbnb. I mean, Europe. That would be a major market for them. Because Europe is so popular to visit. Year round too. So it's like so there is perfectly fine just to say that this is what the European Union is trying to do, and the company is now negotiating. There. My understanding in terms of Airbnb. It's you could pick a lot of number of things. Like I know like some places like New York City, are trying to make Airbnb illegal, and other places are trying to regulate Airbnb. Okay, we'll make it legal, but this is a compromise Airbnb is trying to offer. You have to provide a list of who are all the Airbnb hosts. You know what I mean? So you can always go in that direction, that with Airbnb, it always comes to, should they be regulated? And if so, how? That's really what it comes down to.
Okay.
Yeah.
So can I consider like Airbnb under trade secret to a certain point?
Yeah. Yeah. In that case, when it comes to information like that, like sometimes governments will want, certain information from a company. And this actually is going on with the oversight board. For example, the oversight board has power of discovery. They can ask Facebook for for a lot of information relating to any content that has been taken down. But what the oversight board does not have a right to is to look at any of Facebook's algorithms, and so so this is an issue, across many different types of companies and things like that. But yeah, that's perfectly fine. It's with trade secrets, it's always a very delicate issue. And I will tell you, I didn't mention this when we talk about civil and criminal cases. Trade secrets can be discoverable. That's why you always have to have a lawyer, because then it's going to be up to the party that doesn't want to reveal its trade secrets has to ask a judge for a special protective order. And then the judge can say that, okay, you don't have to provide any, of your trade secrets, or you can provide it, but the other side now has an obligation, to not disclose it to anybody else. So, this could be, this could, like in the European case, if it ends up in a court somewhere in Europe, it's very possible that the company would have to ask for a judge for that protection, if they can't come to an agreement with the governmental authorities over the regulators over there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Also, do you know any like website or that is reliable so that I can like look up a company's trademarks or
oh yeah,
approval?
Let me show you right now. Let's go do a screen share, and I'll show you right now how to do that. I didn't have a chance to do it in our class because of the limited time. Let me do a screen share. Okay, and let me do this. Let me just pull this up over here. Let me see if we can. Here we go. So I just typed in tests into the search engine, which is the electronic search service. That's what it stands for. And if you type in tests, this will be your first result here. Search trademark database. And so this is a great way to actually discover. So let's look up the Airbnb, and I'll do this for the benefit of all the students here. Let me see. Let me put my glasses on here. Okay, we want a basic word. We'll just do the easiest one. Let's see what pops up just out of curiosity. You can see there's a whole bunch of things that have come up, but it looks like there's a whole bunch over here. Look at this. But let's just click on this first one and see what it is. A word mark, vacation real estate listing. So you see, and this is the one I was talking about. I think those other ones might be different types of logos.
They changed it a bunch of times already.
Yeah, exactly. But let me look at the date. This was May 1st, 2015. And that was registered on 2016. Look at this, January 12, 2016. And this is a service mark, right? They don't sell goods. So it's, it's a trademark, but technically it's a service mark, a type of trademark. And this has all the information there. So I'll put this, I wonder if I just send this to you in the link, but just go into tests. And I don't know if this will work for you if you just have to go in. Otherwise, type, and this is true for everybody else too. If you want to do a search, and I should have done, I normally do this as part of class, and what ended up happening is we ran out of time, and a couple of my trademark slides were inadvertently left out, and so I forgot to go into the tests, the electronic search service that the United States Patent and Trademark Office makes available to the public. And as you can see, it's not the best, you know what I mean? But it's a great place to start. And you can see that the first of the Airbnb trademark registrations there is the one that I was hoping would come up, the word, the trademark for the actual word. If you go down and look at those other ones, it's going to be more for the logo or the style of how that word is written out, and that has changed over the years. But the main thing is here you can see one of the original ones for the word Airbnb. And so, what I'm trying to look at my version here is if it allows you to access the actual registration. This is just sort of giving me an electronic, but I'd have to play around with that a little bit more. But at least that has all the data that you need, and just take a screenshot, if you want to add an appendix or an attachment. You don't have to, you know what I mean? But that's just to show you that it is possible to find out all that information.
Yes, because I found a website that's called Jfk Patents, and it has at least 69 granted patents.
Wow. Well, yeah. So those third-party websites can be helpful as well, because they'll do all the hard work and then they will consolidate it for you. And then what I just did, I just went straight into the patent and trademark office, the tests, what they call the the electronic search service, and just did it through that way. But yeah, absolutely, either is fine.
So I was just wondering if it was like trustworthy, because there's so many,
right,
that I was a bit sketchy about it.
Yeah. Well, here you have it. At least one from the actual horse's mouth, so to speak.
Yes. Thank you, Professor.
Of course, my pleasure, and very good to talk to you. By the way, anybody else has a question, comment, or concern? I believe Czech Republic is playing now England, and I'm a huge Czech Republic fan. Believe it or not, from one of my aunts, I have family in Czech Republic, and I've got to visit Prague in a little city called Liva by the river, 40 kilometers away from the big city. So I'm definitely going to watch the rest of the Euro Cup Czech Republic match, but any other questions, comments, or concerns?
That's nice. No, thank you so much. Also, great. You could cheer for Brazil.
Oh, yes, Euro Cup. Yes, absolutely. Brazil, that's a huge powerhouse. And when in the World Cup next year, of course, I always root for
Fingers crossed.
Exactly right. I always root for the South American team. And usually it's Brazil is the one that's, that goes deep. So absolutely. Okay. God bless to everybody and charge on.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
I have a question. Sorry.
Oh, yes, come in.
Okay. So I'm working on the homework right now.
Okay.
And I am looking at the contracts, and it